Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Upside of Chaos. I am your co-pilot on this magic carpet ride, Bandit.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Spidey here, Stone.
Thank you for joining us today. So let's get everything started. Today on the Upside of Chaos, we're going to dive into the development of the community friendships that helped us and how we got here, all while we start understanding our emotions and behavior, with a little help from our very own Tacos and Twixies input with a mental health segment. We will kick things off with a background of how it all started. For me, our business is fairly new in the grand scheme of things, just
I
under
didn't know
five.
it was that new.
Just under 5 years.
Yeah, that was crazy when you were telling us the other day you started around 2020, and she was like, "Damn, I didn't know it was that new." All right,
I mean, it's been in development for many years. I worked for a lot of different companies throughout the years. And to break it down and not to get into so much detail, and we could say that for another episode to talk a little bit more about if anybody's interested in the blue collar plumbing, new construction and service world, I can certainly elaborate and discuss more about that. There's some funny stories that go along with that. But, to give you a background on it, pushing 20 years of plumbing experience. When I started off, I worked for a company that kind of was a broad spectrum. They did a lot of different things. They were a communications company, really. They worked on cell towers and things of that nature, but they definitely did more than that. They dabbled in remodel work and things like that, but nobody was really, what's funny is nobody was really experienced in any of that stuff. It was just like one day you'd come in and it would be like, "Oh, I know you were supposed to climb this 300-foot tower today. Actually, what we're going to do is tear apart a bathroom." So that's really where it kind of started. And I
that
guess
makes sense for how you attack things now too, because you've been telling me like that the lady, the electricity problem that you did and all that shit. So it's all coming together. All right.
Yeah. So, and he would, again, it would just be random. You would think that you have a week of pulling coax and antenna cable up a tower, and he's like, "Yeah, no. Today we're adding a bathroom to a basement," and everybody's like, "I don't know how to do that." And I kind of just ran with it. I kind of just, maybe I had the eye for it. I'm not really sure. And I got put more and more on jobs like that. And then, that job kept me on the road a lot. So I would be away for months at a time, and that was hard with a new family.
Fuck yeah. Especially all the kiddos you got.
Yeah. And it's not, it was hard for me. I'm not going to say it wasn't, but really it was harder for my family. And, I don't need to dive into, what that put Miss Amanda through and the kids and all of that jazz, because that's something I'd let them discuss. But I know it wasn't easy on them. Then I went to another company for a couple of years, and, this is a credit to my age. If this gives you an idea, when I first started plumbing, they're paying me like $7.50 an hour.
Oh my God, you old man.
You're right. So $7.50 an hour. And I'll try not to, dive into too much of every single company, but they were more of a service company. We did mainline sewer camera, we did mainline sewer repairs, we worked on septic fields and septic tanks and things of that nature. And I really put some time in there. It was like 2.5, 3 years.
Fuck yeah,
And
for a while.
Well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not, but I never got a raise. And I think it was about my 2-year mark. We were doing a city main water treatment place. And I don't know if anybody knows what that is like, but essentially it's like a 2-bedroom apartment underground. And you pull the lid off, and there are like 15 10-inch pipes just dumping sewage into it. And they're like, "Okay, we're going to have to lower you down into this hole, and we're going to run a vector to suck it out. And you need to clean off the edges of the pipe."
Oh.
and ladies and gentlemen, they don't shut those pipes off
when they do that.
When they do that. And so they're like, here, put this cheesecloth suit on. We're going to lower you 10 feet down into this hole. And we're going to put a CO2 sensor in there. That way, if, the air quality is not good, we'll pull you back out. They lower me down into this hole, and I'm making $750 an hour.
Oh my gosh.
To get literally shit on.
Yes.
And the confined space alarm is just going off. I mean, it is just blaring. And so I give the symbol to raise me up, and he pulls me out and he goes, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well, the confined space sensor is going off. The air quality down there is not very good." And he was like, "Oh, yeah. You're all right, though." What? And I go, No. I don't make enough money to do this.
Yeah.
And it was funny because Miss Amanda, again, has been super supportive through everything I've done in my life. Good or bad, bad, she worked through it with me. Good. She's just like, "Hey, babe, I support you, whatever you want to do." And, it'd been weeks of me talking like, "Babe, I just don't make enough money. I'm snaking drains. I'm in septic tanks. I'm making $750 an hour." She was like, "Well, whatever you want to do, And that day I'd had enough. I was like, "I'm not doing this anymore. I'll find a different job." And it was funny, just again, how different the world is now, but how it was then. That guy, they took me back to the shop, and the superintendent or manager or whatever you would call him, construction manager, was like, "You're doing it. You're going to do this job, or tomorrow you'll be out in the front of this house or front of this building cleaning the septic tank with a teacup." And I was like,
go fuck yourself at that point.
Exactly. I was like, maybe you didn't understand what I said. You're either going to pay me more money or I'm gone.
Yeah.
And they said
I'm not going to do that job, and you're going to treat me like shit. You can go fuck yourself right off the bat. Sorry.
Right. So then I got into the new construction side of it, and I worked for a company about 6 or 7 years, and great company. I learned a lot fast, but they had their core set of guys. Like, it didn't matter how hard you worked.
They had their guys, and that was nothing going to change unless one of them retired.
Right. And some of these guys, some of these guys are pushing 50, 60 years old. And I'm like, I'm running circles around them. I got my brother into plumbing at that point. And again, I harbor no bad feelings towards them. It is what it is. To this day, they're still around. They've taken a pretty good hit on the chin. But I ended up leaving to go work for a new company. And I worked there for a couple of years. That guy's still around, but he switched to service, strictly service. Then I worked 5 years at another company. So what I'm getting at is I worked my way through all of these companies, and I made a lot of companies a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I just woke up one day and was like, you know what? I do enough side work. I can do this myself. And there's more to it than how it all panned out. But it definitely pushed me into that direction. We've grown a lot in the last few years. We have 6 or 7 different builders. And although we have great guys that work for us, majority of them are family. It's a lot. And that's where it was hitting me. I just felt like every time I talked about something, I was talking about plumbing. I was talking about how the business is falling apart. You just felt so trapped. Miss Amanda, my brother, my mother, my father, they see a change in you, and they're like, you just seem angry. You just seem like you're and that's
more like a tensed ball kind of, right?
And that's really what it was. And I'm still coming out of that. And that's what the community brought for me. Was I was able to put that stuff on the shelf. I was able to build friendships unrelated to the plumbing world, unrelated to my business, and the reality of it is when people tell you to have a good work-life balance, when you combine work and life in terms of like the majority of my family works for the company.
I was gonna say, like, yours is very intertwined because now a lot of like you are just exactly it is. So many of your family work for the company that it's interweaved with y'all's lives a lot. You got your brother, you have your sons, you have your wife, you have your daughter. Everybody's working there.
I'm so excited that they are able to do, like, the company is able to do that, right? I'm excited that we are able to afford that opportunity to them. So it was just like one day I woke up and I'm like, I'm just sitting there just confused to the point where I didn't know if this is even what I wanted to do anymore. And to the point where, my brother and my wife, and they were both like, hey, what's going on with you? You seem angry all the time. And I take it personal. Anybody who doesn't put all their self in, or anybody that puts themselves into a business as much as we have, you do take it personal because
you're bound to,
of how much time and effort, blood, sweat, tears, that whole thing that you put into it.
Exactly.
And I'm trying, I don't have the greatest memory. This is what happens when you get old, folks. But I try to pinpoint the days that I'm like, oh my God, it was such a release. It was such a relief to get in and spend some time with everybody, whether it be, Coderex, yourself, Tacos, K-Rock, Miss Amanda, Bunny, all the whole community. Those little moments are just so valuable. I couldn't even put a price on them for what they do to me mentally and what it has done and has helped me grown so much in terms of, for instance, yesterday I had Bunny and I had to go get glasses, and we kind of turned it into more than just what it was, like a task of, oh, we're just going to get glasses. We went out and had some breakfast and we sat and talked with one another, and we were able to do that because I was in the right mind or right mindset or headspace that I didn't need to talk about work.
Aww.
And that for me was huge.
That makes me smile.
And that was the friendship that, Spidey and I developed. Was we helped each other through a tough year, and we continue to do it for one another.
Yeah, I mean, 2023 was one of the fucking hardest years of my life, and I mean, I've been in some shit, guys. I've lived some fucking life. I'll tell you what, I've lived some life to where it's like, I'm happy I'm neither dead or in jail. But
yep,
all that aside, 2023 was still the worst fucking year of my life. For me, it was just, there's a lot of fucking mental and emotional trial and anguish, and a lot of emotions, thoughts, feelings, sentiments were brought to the forefront that weren't quite realized by both parties. It changed some relationship, good and bad. I mean, it is what it is, but
you have ground to start from now, right? You're wiser there for it. You're able to identify and see more of what's out there based on what you went through.
Yeah. I see what you're saying with that. I get it. That.
And that's why when I say you have a foundation, you have groundwork. I mean, there could still be ground that needs to be covered. Nobody is,
right.
That old saying, Rome wasn't built in the day.
Yeah.
You're going to go through that, and I'm here. I got my broby. You got your broby here with you.
Yeah, that's seriously, like, even just a little bit, like, because Tacos is my absolute, like, bestest friend, and that's another thing I feel blessed with, and I think I've heard the same sentiment from you, is when your wife is your best friend, it's so fucking nice, because, like, I mean, imagine having your best friend and you're also married to him and you spend the rest of your life with him, but like,
to be able to develop that kind of relationship with the person that you are in love with and married to is a blessing, in my opinion.
I have never met a 70, 80-year-old man or woman that has been married for 60 years or 50 years or whatever it is, not end up saying either they were like, they were my best friend, or after it ended, whether it be unfortunate, they passed away, it's always been the same thing. I didn't realize they were my best friend.
Okay, so for the whole shit 2023 and stuff, for me it was a big emotional, mental toll, and something I never ever really experienced in life, and it definitely had changed some things for me. And tacos has been my best friend and confidant for years, and that's been amazing. But it's nice to have had someone else in those moments too, because it took away from having to put that stress on tacos.
Well, it's another insight, right? Where that has to be aligned is it's okay to have more friends. It's even okay to consider someone else like a best friend.
Yeah, of course.
As long as your goals are aligned, and this is just in my experience, and I'm just speaking from my experience. I've had really close friends, but my best interests weren't aligned with their interests.
Yeah.
So that negatively can impact the relationship that you're trying to build.
Yeah.
So one of the things we talk about, good, bad, or indifferent, that I talk about with my brother, with my wife, with my mom, I talk to everybody, so whatever. My brother does not let other people's opinions waver or change his decision on something. And that's good and bad, in my opinion.
Right. That's what you're saying.
You could say something to him that could be 100% your opinion. And I'm not saying he won't listen. He's a great listener. And he definitely doesn't, he's again, he's one of my best friends. He's known me my whole life. He's my brother. There are a few people in the world that know me better than him. But you cannot tell that guy something if he's already made his mind up about it, which I think is more amazing than not. Because, he doesn't let other people's little tidbits or factors weigh in on the decision that I'm a man. Whether a man or a woman, but I'm an adult. I made this decision. I'm going to stand by it. And this is what it is. But it can be unhealthy if he doesn't see something. That's where I could say would be a negative about it. But that's where the best friends come into play. If you have someone who has your best interest in their mind and your goals are aligned, that's where it's good to have another friendship on it, another take, another opinion.
I agree. And part of what I was getting at, and honestly is getting a little dusty in here when I was saying it, is just because it's always nice to be able to go over and converse and vent with my wife about things. But there are times where it would start to like, not that I would purposely, but even like it would transfer some of it in some sense, like because she would worry for me or feel for me, and so when I would release my stress with her and everything, it would be almost like sometimes it would be a burden onto her. And not that she ever said this, or I was just, I could tell like it would affect her and bring her down because it's bringing me down because I'm in that way. So when I had someone else to lean on like that, it meant a lot. And it's a huge part of what created our bond, you and me, Ben.
Yeah. And I'm with you, buddy. I 100% can see that as your relationship with it was, I was able to identify it, the closeness that you and Tacos had right off the rip. I just aligned with it so well. And
because I sense it with you and Miss Amanda too.
And when you guys were going through, and this is not to say that I know something that I don't know, but you, as you had said, when it's just nice to be able to reach out to somebody and that you could say or vent about something, and I don't hold it against that individual, or I don't hold it against that specific scenario.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, hey, man, it's okay. And it's okay to have a rough day. It's okay. And just to get that off your chest. And I'm so happy that we have found that connection with one another. And I have your guys' relationship in its best interest. At no time would I ever have, I would just like, I don't think you would be like, wow, Miss Amanda's just this, or that. That's not what you're looking for. That's not healthy.
No.
You don't need that. And you, like I said, you did the same thing for me in 2023. When I was, whether I identified it and came out and said, hey, listen, I need you just did it. You just picked up that Broby hat and put it on and walked with me. And that's what I needed. And it took me out of a scenario that was beating the hell out of me, dude. And that's what we were able to do. And I think the same, I don't know, there are frustrating days with every individual. There's days I'm sure you get frustrated with me. And that's why you're able to look at Tacos and go, I want to kick Bandit in the balls today. But it doesn't mean that you don't love me still.
No, absolutely love your brother. I think the only frustration I've had lately, I literally, like, because we're mature adults, I brought up to you. I was like, bro, just hit me up. You have work, and I wasn't being sarcastic. Like, that shit is primo importance. All I want is, like, since we were gonna meet that morning, it's just like, bro, I gotta go and fucking work. I'm gonna be here longer. That way, like, oh, okay, we're not gonna make this time. That's cool. Just let me know.
Sure.
That's all I want, bro.
And
That's honestly the biggest frustration I've had with you in a long time. And then point for that is, like, we've had really good days lately. I'm not saying we've had bad ones with each other. I'm just saying we've had really good ones lately. So
yeah, and I always tell everybody I've got big shoulders. If you can come to me in a manner that's just not attacking me as an individual, you'll always get a side of me where I'm like, you're right, I'm sorry. But in the same regard, the conversation between you and I in regards to what had happened and to why I wasn't there that day or why we didn't communicate was fantastic. That's how a healthy adult conversation should go, and a problem gets resolved.
exactly. And so I didn't want that to sit and fester. Or anything dumb and get really angry about you with it or whatever. So I was like, dude, I was gonna say it. I was gonna be like, man, just communicate with me about it. And like you said, like, we both brought it up and we were both like, yeah, understood.
And that's the way, and you should be able to just move on from that.
Exactly.
You didn't attack me.
No,
You didn't say you were whatever.
no.
You say what
I
needs
was
to be
even
said.
trying to be more supportive because, like, I get it. You have the ADHD.
Yeah.
You have very important stuff that you got going on. And if you get an emergency call, I get it, though. Like, what's on your mind now is like, oh, fuck, I got to go do this and get this over with just so I can get my Saturday back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it.
And the only other thing that, and again, this is not even to the specific scenario. I just would like people in general to understand, you have to, as we had said before, and this isn't even, again, I'm not even tying this into what we talked about.
Right.
There's another scenario in my life right now that I hope people understand. Like, things come up, things happen. Not I don't do anything. I didn't do anything intentionally. And I think some people are taking things out of context, and I get busy, and It's not to say that my time is any more valuable than anyone else's time.
Right.
And I 100% have to communicate. You can't assume something about someone else. And I just hope that everybody understands that. I don't think I'm no more important than anyone else. Just be a little understanding.
Yeah,
That's all.
absolutely. Yeah.
Be understanding and accept an apology and know that it's heartfelt. And, I'm sorry if I ever offend anyone, if I ever say something or do something to make you feel uncomfortable, you know that you can come to me and talk to me about it. And I promise you there will be no attack.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that'll goes for me too, and most people around here. But I also just want to say I think it matters how you approach it. Because if you come in with like venom and hate,
That's an attack, right?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, don't come to talk to us about it.
Yeah.
That's different than coming and trying to argue with us or bring hate.
That's back to the positive. When I say not everything is positive, and if you come in just swinging, well, you're going to get a side of each individual, anybody, not just me. If you attack somebody, well, you're not going to get the best reaction out of them.
And it depends on what it is, but it's maybe like Bandit and I with a maturity and experience might just try to shoulder it for an extent, but then after a bit, you're gonna get a swing back if you're not changing the tune.
Yeah. So, but that's generally in life, people.
Yeah.
You can verbally communicate with somebody in a positive, calm manner. And as frustrating and as hard as it might seem to be able to get your point across, you have to be calm. You have to be patient. It might take you biting your tongue a little bit, but in that direct moment, understand that usually most people don't have the greatest control of their emotions. I'm an emotional person. So you might hear me start to say something. I usually am good enough about going, oh, I'm just going to, sorry. I'm very passionate. Let me just shut up for a second and listen to the situation.
Well, I think that kind of relates back to what we were saying with this mental health segment for this episode is you're actually right. You can't control your emotions. I don't think very many people can control their emotions at all. I think it's a wrong turn phrase. I think controlling your reactions
Correct.
which are your behaviors that come from those emotions is what people have trouble with. And that's also what is talked about in this segment here.
Yeah. I keep saying control your emotion. No, Bandit is just old. He's got to work on his terminology, his vocabulary. Control your reaction is what I really mean to say.
And that's what everybody has the control over and that can work on to better themselves. When you're out and about in the world, guys, don't forget someone in front of you at the grocery store line is pissing you off or something. They could be having a day that's about 6 times worse than yours. And is it a competition or anything? No, it's just to bring up the fact that like, man, the world doesn't revolve around you, and it's not in a mean way. It's not like saying you're self-centered. It's just a refresh to be like, dude, that guy could have just walked in 10 piles of shit before he got here, and you think you're pissed off.
Yeah. I mean, take light of each situation, take into account what someone else might be going through, approach each situation that way, and you'll definitely be more understanding. Now,
empathy is a very key thing in the world.
Yeah, you not only have to do that, the rest of the world has to do that as well. And it's okay. Not everybody is going to do that all the time. But if you approach that situation that way, you get to control your emotion a little more. That's the only thing you can control, your reaction. And a lot of people don't understand that you can control that. And I'm guilty of it as well. I can't remember the exact person that I heard this on. Again, I try to, as everybody remembers in the, when I went into describing what I'm all about, is about positive vibes, in the real world and in the gaming world. You really, really do try. And I try to be influenced by people who are positive. And I can remember a specific situation, and this is only 3-4 months ago. I remember I listened to this episode and on another podcast, and I can't remember the gentleman's name because I'm new to the whole you got to subscribe and follow thing. And I know it sounds funny. But I usually whatever enters my For You is what I'm like, oh, okay. And then now I'm really starting to pin that stuff and come back. But this individual said, do you like being mad? And of course, no one likes to be mad. No one likes to be angry or upset. And he goes, so why do you do it?
Yeah.
Why do you do it then? And hearing that, you're like, right. He said, so your boss didn't give you a raise. So somebody cut you off in traffic. So what? Like, why? You can control how you react to that. And I remember this it was like an epiphany. It was like a light bulb went off above my head. It was like, he is so fucking right. You know what? That is amazing. That's how I want to live my life. And I remember listening to this episode at night and I was like, I am going to get up in the morning and I am going to approach life with a whole different mindset. I remember waking up in the morning, going through my routine, like it's going to be a great day today. Everybody's going to work hard. We're going to do the best we can. I get in my truck. I drive a quarter of a mile and a guy runs a red light and cuts me off. And I lost my fucking mind. You would have thought everything that I just heard, I never heard before. And I am straight up raging. And it was like, this guy's so fucking inconsiderate. He could have caused an accident. You son of a bitch. Everybody's late for work. And right after it, I said, oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
You really did a great job controlling your emotion there.
Yeah.
So it's,
I feel it. I resonate with that. Trust me, I resonate with that.
It's not something that you just decide to do. Like, it's a conscious decision to try to make a better effort in doing that.
Because there's a part in there that he's talking about. He's like, you can't control your emotions and how you feel about something and whatever, but what you can control and what comes from it is the behaviors or the reactions. Because it's a good point is you don't have the control over how things make you feel, and to expect that's fucking crazy and it's unreal. But what to expect that it is fair is to learn how to manage the reactions off of these emotions, how to tune them to be better, more appropriate ones.
100%.
Is it going to be all the time and shit? No, we're all humans who have things to fucking work on, But
being able to identify that you may or may not be the problem in the situation is definitely huge. But too often we get mixed up. And then, like I had said before, for me, and this is kind of how it all ties in and wraps up, is I was so close to the problem that I couldn't find a way out. I couldn't find a solution. I didn't know what the issue was. And it kind of the cards just fell into place. I got wrapped up into a community that cared about me as I care about them. And it took me away from a situation and it helped me to step back. And then now I can look at it in a different way. And that's kind of how it ties in terms of, you have to be able to control your reaction. You can't control your emotion. You can't control how something makes you feel, but you can control the outer portion of it with time, with experience. There are so many people that, on a day-to-day, I watch interactions and I watch things happen, and I immediately in my mind, I'm like, that would have drove me nuts. How did they not do that? Well, they have the experience. Who knows, what they've gone through in their life to get to that particular point, right? And then in their eyes, it's probably laughable. Like, this guy had a horrible day. I apologize. Sorry that you had a rough day today. I'm not going to let you ruin my day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another thing is you gotta learn not to let someone else's behaviors influence yours. Easier said than done.
Well, yeah. And I mean, even to the point, like, I'm not perfect at all. We already know that Bandit is an emotional wreck most days. Like, we have no idea what I'm going to say or do. And, in most cases, I try to spin it, in my own mind, like, oh, we saw Bandit get frustrated there. It's all in all, I'm trying to develop myself into a better person, along with paint a better picture for my family and influence other people in a positive way.
Ladies and gents, here is the segment that Banna and I were talking about earlier. Our very own Tap Chaos, Ms. Tacos, and Twixie Time discuss and dissect an acclaimed Harvard paper. This paper and its prompt to discussion elaborate this episode's much covered topic of emotions and how they affect our reactions and or our behaviors. Please take a listen and enjoy.
For present purposes, it is useful to distinguish two broad categories or main focuses will be on what ordinary people, i.e. not specialists in the psychological firm, call emotions. These are conscious feelings or states. A person normally has one at a time. Often it is categorized by a bodily response, such as physical arousal. These states are highly differentiated, and people have a wealth of terms they use to donate many different emotions: fear, anger, jealousy, joy, surprise, anger. You did anger twice, big guy. Disgust, and many more. These states tend to be slow to arise and slow to dissipate. In my opinion, that whole paragraph has so many things wrong with it. So many things wrong with it. First and foremost, the fact that you equate emotion to needing a bodily response. Not all emotions have a bodily response. Do the majority? Yes, I would agree with that, but not all emotion have bodily responses. There's so many times where you are overwhelmed and your body isn't even capable of responding to the mental disassociation. Like disassociation in its definition is perfectly, like it perfectly counteracts this entire paragraph. Dissociation is when your brain gets so overwhelmed with emotional outlet that it just shuts off. You just literally zone out and do nothing. And doing nothing is the exact opposite of having a physical response.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, because that's the first thing that popped in my mind too, was dissociation, because it's like, and you have an awareness. Just because you're disconnected from your body doesn't mean you're not aware how like flooded you are. And it's like, well, if I could actually tune into this right now, you're still very aware that you're overwhelmed, but yeah, typically like your hands would be sweaty, or your heart would be racing, or your breathing would change, or you'd punch something. I mean, there's so many different bodily reactions you can have with emotion, but there's also a non-response, which I guess could be argued as a response because it's a non-response. I don't know, but
yeah, but a response has to, like, so I mean, in the definition of response, you're correct. Like you're always going to have a response, but the way it was worded in this, and of course he used really, really fun, catchy terms such as a person normally has one at a time. I disagree with that terminology. I would rather see it be stated as a person can have one at a time, or can experience emotion one at a time. That is true. You can feel one overwhelming emotion and it kind of like shuts out the rest. But in my opinion, I do believe that at any given moment, even if you are so pissed that you want to fucking burn the world to the ground, there is other emotions intertwined with that anger. You're never just, like, in my opinion, you're never just angry.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
And because so many of us, no matter where you fall on the functioning spectrum, we don't understand all emotions ourselves. And we use blanket terms like I'm angry or I'm sad, but it's not the only thing you're feeling. You might be feeling scared. You might be feeling hurt. You might be exactly
annoyed.
There's so many different things you are feeling at the same time. And that works into feeling flooded.
And then this last sentence really irks me. I really disagree with this last sentence because it states these states tend to be slow to arise and slow to dissipate. That obviously he used catchy terms like tend to be instead of trying to make any like full
Commitment. Yeah,
statement.
he's not making commitments to his theory.
Exactly. And the funny thing is emotion, in my opinion, behaviors are more often slowly up and slowly down in the means of your emotional outlet. There is going to be times where you are totally neutral, you're fine, you're having an okay time, and then, you know, you see a person that you really dislike. Or for instance, you go to a party and you're expecting to see all your friends and you're having a great time, and then your ex shows up, right? That is going to have an immediate emotional response. That is not slowly rising and slowly dissipating. That is immediately giving you an emotional response. And it's the same concept as like your learned behaviors.
And I was just going to say, it's because emotion is not something you can control. It's something that happens on a subconscious level first.
Response.
You know, you might not even realize, you know, because you're feeling it first before you even go, oh crap, like there's that pang in my heart, or there's that drop in my stomach, or, you know, whatever else you're reflecting, even if it's a split second later or 10 minutes later, like that reflection comes after, you know?
Yeah. You know, so that's disproving the fact that your behaviors are responses to your emotion. She had an emotional response, and because of that emotional response, a behavior took place.
Because some of us, and some of us, like, again, you're going to feel first, and then you're going to react without thinking. Like the order changes, but the thing that's always going to be first is the emotion. And then it's like, some people just immediately react like, oh, fuck this. And then some people, it takes them 10 minutes. It's like, you know what? Fuck this.
All right, next paragraph. Such states must be distinguished from automatic effect, which are possibly far more common than full-blown emotions. Don't like that terminology, but are perhaps less frequently recognized. These can be subtle, possibly not even conscious. They are activated quickly and may come and go within a fraction of a second, because these are linked by simple associations, and a person may have multiple associations. A person may have several affective reactions at the same time. They may not be as differentiated as conscious emotions. In some views, effects are simply on a single dimension of positive to negative, although some recent work has begun to suggest that even non-conscious affective reactions fall in various distinct categories that are demonstrated different. Okay, so now we're getting into what I like to call, in like the psychology, like ideals. This is where they are nitpicking and they're trying to distinguish things that don't really need to be categorized differently. This is talking about response, right? So they're trying to say that responses are not emotion. They're trying to state that there's a difference between a automatic effect, which is quote unquote a response, and a full blown emotion. I don't like the terminology of full blown emotion, because whether you're feeling the emotion entirely or partially feeling an emotion, you are still feeling an emotion. At the end of the day, that's what you're feeling. And for someone to gauge it as you're not actually feeling an emotion until you fully feel that emotion seems a little picky. You know, like are you trying to say that if I'm a little bit mad, that I'm not actually mad? So like this entire paragraph is summarizing the fact that a response is not an emotion, and to a degree it is correct, because there is sometimes where a response doesn't dictate your actual emotional state. So for example, if you are in traffic, right, and you're annoyed, you're frustrated because you're sitting in bumper to bumper traffic and that's pissing you off. And all of a sudden, because of how frustrated and mad you are, there's been multiple times where I've done it myself where you'll giggle, you'll laugh, right? Because the circumstances that you're in are so out of your control that you're just like, it just makes you laugh. Like, you're just like, I don't know why I'm so mad, because even if I wasn't mad, I would still be fucking stuck in traffic. And so your response being the affect of you giggling or laughing at the occasion is not your emotion, right? Your emotion is you're upset and you're frustrated, but your instant response is to like laugh at the situation because of how ridiculous it is. So I do agree that in some instances, a response doesn't dictate your full emotion, but that doesn't mean that you're not feeling an emotion.
Well, and then that also goes into a controlled response. Because if I'm in a situation in an environment where I can't just flip over a table and start cussing, I might react completely differently than how I want to.
All right. So now we understand reading that paragraph, we can kind of understand the writer's viewpoint on emotion and reaction. So we can kind of see that they fall under the like Raisin Staple, which is like the psychologist that came up with the effective response terminology. So you can kind of see that they do believe that your immediate response isn't always directive to your emotional outlet, which is, once again, like I made a statement before, it's not all the way wrong, but it can also be damaging, because there is sometimes where you're going to have a response that is relevant to your emotion.
I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I think sometimes the life we live or the situations we typically find ourselves in, like, it doesn't cover everything. And, you know, you and I, we live in such a environment sometimes with autistic children that what you get usually, it can be face value a lot of the time. And you forget that it's not always a true reflection of what's going on inside.
Thank you for listening in on that segment. Special thanks to Twixie Time and our very own Mrs. Tacos. Please stay tuned for more on this discussion in future episodes. Visit our website to check out our Patreon extras and didn't make the cut content. Please follow the links in today's episode description or on our website. To engage with us about the episode, perhaps tell us how you felt in a situation where you may have had to control your reaction, what best practices you use. Join in on our questions to become part of the experience and the growth. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today here on the Upside of Chaos.
If you want to find out more about the Upside of Chaos, head on over to our website where we have extras, previous episodes, and where we'll put our new ones. www.tapchaos.com/podcast.
That's www.tapchaos.com/podcast. Thank you again for joining us, and you guys take care of yourself.
And take care of each other. We'll see you next time.